Some people think great victories belong only to great men. But what if I told you that, in the Bible, it was a young boy, slim, unarmored, with zero military experience, who turned the tide against the greatest warrior of his time? Yes, that's right. While everyone was waiting for a hero with muscles and a sword, God raised up a shepherd boy with a sling in his hand and faith in his heart. Sound absurd, right? But the truth is, heaven never bets on the favorites. God bets on the willing. Maybe you're sitting there thinking, come on, this is just a symbolic story, some inspirational fable about overcoming odds. But it's not. David and Goliath is a real account of how the unlikely defeated the impossible. And here's the most intriguing part. Today's giants don't wear armor, but they still intimidate just the same. They show up as debt, depression, social comparison, that quiet voice of insecurity you keep repeating to yourself. And still, you think you need to be big enough to face them. Spoiler, you don't. What this story is about to show you is that faith, when lived with conviction and action, breaks every logic. It doesn't matter if you're the smallest in the line, if you don't have a big last name or a prestigious resume. God loves to start with those no one would ever take seriously. And if you feel too small, you might be closer to a miracle than you think. Because the greatest act of courage don't start with swords. They start with a choice. Now, the real question is, what actually happened in that valley between a boy and a giant? How did a place of fear become a stage for victory? And why does this ancient story still speak so powerfully to us today? And now that you've heard this story with fresh eyes, tell me, how many times have you ignored the signs around you? Are you waiting for the rain to start before you begin to act? Or, just like so many in Noah's time, have you been laughing at what you should be taking seriously? The truth is simple and brutal. Everyone is building something. The question is, what and why? Are you building something that can withstand time, pressure, and judgment? Or are you just stacking up distractions to keep up appearances? Maybe the flood in your world won't come with water, but with loss, loneliness, crisis, or disappointments that pour down like silent storms. And when that moment comes, because it always does, what will keep you standing? This video wasn't made to entertain you. It was made to stir something inside you, to make you reevaluate your priorities. Maybe it's time to start building your own ark. That project God gave you but you abandoned because you were afraid of what people would say. So what will it be? Will you keep bowing to the system? Or will you be the crazy one who builds when no one understands, but survives when no one expects it? If this story spoke to you in any way, leave a comment below. Tell me, what are you going to start building today? And before you go, make sure to subscribe to the channel, turn on the bell, and share this video with someone who also needs to hear this message. Because time is running out, and the sky is already getting heavy. While the soldiers trembled and the general scrambled for strategies that never came, David was in a completely different setting. Far from the battlefield, he was tending sheep. Yes, the young warrior was more concerned with protecting defenseless animals than wielding a sword. But look at the divine irony. Sometimes, the one in the most unlikely training ground is the one being prepared to change history. David was young and visible to the army's eyes, but far too visible to the eyes of God. His father called him and gave him a simple task. Take some bread and cheese to your brothers. And off he went, with a bag on his shoulders and a heart full of obedience. Take note of this. Before defeating Goliath, David was faithful in a humble delivery. How many people today look down on small tasks while waiting for a big battle? But it's in the simple things where the character of a true champion is forged. If you want to face your giants, maybe you need to start by delivering bread and cheese with excellence when no one is watching. And when he arrived at the camp, it wasn't the smell of war that shocked him. It was the silence of trained men hiding behind their tents. He heard Goliath's challenge for the first time, and something ignited. While everyone else stepped back, he stepped forward. A young man, slim, unarmed, unrecognized, yet with a roaring sense of justice inside him. The scene reminds us that sometimes the one who carries a solution is the one who seems least prepared in human eyes. It's a timeless story of faith over fear, repeating itself in every generation. Have you ever stopped to consider how many chances David had to give up before even getting there? He could have ignored his father's request. He could have gotten lost on the road. He could have stayed confined to his role as a shepherd, but he didn't. He went, and along the way, he became part of the most epic underdog victory ever recorded, all because he chose to obey. So the next time someone underestimates your small assignment, or when you yourself feel like just a delivery guy, remember, even David started that way. The most fascinating part? That day, David had no idea he was about to change the course of a war. He didn't leave home to fight, but he left ready to act the moment destiny called. And sometimes, that's how it happens. You think you're just delivering lunch, and end up delivering a revolution. But it all starts when you show up in the right place with the right heart. And it was exactly at that moment that something began to stir deep inside him. While the soldiers kept hiding behind shiny armor and empty speeches, David stood out with something no one else had: conviction. It wasn't just courage, it was faith. A faith that made him see David and Goliath not as an unfair fight, but as an opportunity to prove that the impossible bows before those who truly believe. And listen, real faith doesn't need an audience. It doesn't need a resume. It doesn't need applause. It needs action. David acted while everyone else was still calculating the odds. When he stepped before King Saul, no one took him seriously. How could they? A young man with no war record, claiming he could defeat the fiercest of all Bible giants? It's like an intern saying he can fix a crisis the entire board of directors failed to solve. But here's the thing. David wasn't speaking out of arrogance. He was speaking from experience. When a lion or a bear came to attack my sheep, I faced them. That was his logic. What looked like an empty resume to others was, to him, a history of divine deliverance. And here lies a powerful lesson. How many times have you downplayed your past experiences because they seemed too small? Those moments when you faced fear, defended your family, endured injustice, or held everything together without knowing how. Those were all moments where God was training you for something greater. The problem is, we forget too quickly what we've already overcome. But David remembered, and that made him dangerous to Goliath, even without a sword in his hand. The truth is, while everyone else saw a reckless teenager, God saw a young warrior ready to prove that faith over fear isn't just a slogan on a t-shirt. It's a way of life. David stepped forward and volunteered. No one pushed him. No one forced him. And that makes all the difference. Those who are moved by faith don't wait for crowd's green light. They move, even when everyone else calls it madness. And most of the time it is, because real faith looks like madness, right up until it becomes a testimony. But before he could actually face the giant, he had to confront one more obstacle: the system's attempt to mold him into something he wasn't. Yes, even the king tried to fit him into the traditional mold. He handed him a suit of armor. When Saul offered his royal armor to David, he truly thought he was helping. After all, who in their right mind would face a giant wearing ordinary clothes, right? But David didn't think like everyone else. He tried on the armor and quickly realized something that few have the courage to admit. Not everything that looks strong is actually functional. The armor was heavy, uncomfortable, and most importantly, it wasn't his. And here lies a precious truth. What works for others might be the very thing that holds you back. How many people today are wearing strategies, expectations, and even personalities that aren't truly theirs? David understood early the value of authenticity. While the system said, "You need this to win," he responded, "I only need what I've already used in my past battles." And what he had was a sling. Simple, straightforward, and fully under his control. Sometimes, the key to victory lies exactly in simplicity, in marketing. Success isn't in the special effects, but in the clarity of the message. In relationships, it's not appearances that hold things together, but genuine communication. In life's battles, what wins isn't what shines, it's what works. And David was a master of that. Refusing Saul's armor was an act of courage, but also a maturity. Many people think courage is just stepping into the ring. It's not. Courage is also saying, "This isn't me," when everyone expects you conform. It's like a singer refusing playback to perform live. He takes a risk, but if he stays true to his essence, he leaves a legacy. And if David teaches us anything, it's this: authenticity always wins over performance. Because in the end, Giants don't fall because of what you wear. The sling, small and unimpressive next to Goliath's massive sword, became a symbol of something far greater, trusting God and in oneself. And that applies to every area of life. Your talent may seem small, your resources may feel limited, but if it's what God placed in your hands, it's more than enough. That's what we call an underdog victory. When the unlikely wins using what they carry in their soul. And you know what? It's more common than people think. It just doesn't get celebrated, because the world still idolizes shiny armor far too much. While everyone was expecting a bloody showdown, what came next would be fast, precise, and absolutely shocking. Because when you use what you truly master, even giants fall with a single stone. The tension was palpable. On one side, the giant, his armor gleaming, his sword flashing under the sun, and his ego swollen by past victories. On the other, the boy, with steady eyes, a sling in his hand, and the kind of confidence that knows the impossible bows to faith. And then came the moment that changed everything. David ran forward, swung the sling, and with the precision of someone who'd faced down lions and guarded sheep, he launched the stone. It wasn't luck. It was skill. It was conviction. It was purpose. In 1 second, the clashing of steel and the roar of threats fell silent. David and Goliath was no longer a looming threat. It was a turning point. The stone didn't hit his chest or his arm or his legs. It went straight to the forehead, the one place no armor could defend. And that, right there, holds a powerful lesson. Most giants fall exactly where they believe themselves to be invincible, whether it's pride, status, arrogance, or appearance. God's strategy always strikes where the human ego leaves a crack. David didn't waste time fighting on Goliath's terms. He brought the battle into his own territory. And that's something you need to remember. Not every fight is won by force. Some are won by focus. And let's be honest, the world needs more people like David. People who don't get tangled in endless arguments. People who don't waste energy on what doesn't build. People who train in silence. And when the moment comes, bring down giants with a single, decisive act. Like the entrepreneur who doesn't argue with critics. He just builds. Or the father who doesn't shout. He leads by example. Or the woman who, without fanfare, transforms her entire home through prayer and wisdom. It's that quiet but precise stone that changes everything. The impact was instant. The giant crashed to the ground. And what was once fear became awe. The army that had cowered now stood in stunned silence, witnessing a scene that defied logic. The unlikely had won. The boy with no armor had defeated the very symbol of oppression. And if you look closely, you'll see that even today, the world still bows to this kind of story, because it carries the purest essence of victory. The victory of the small who believe. The victory of those who choose faith over fear. The victory of the one who seemed to have no chance. But something was still missing, because in Bible stories like this, God doesn't end chapters with period. He ends them with impact. And what David did next, no one saw coming. The giant had fallen, but David knew the battle wasn't over just yet. Goliath's body lay on the ground, but fear still lingered in the air. And in that moment, David did the unthinkable. He ran toward the enemy, took the giant's own sword, yes, the enemy's weapon, and cut off his head. The image is intense, almost brutal, but deeply symbolic. David didn't just knock the problem down. He removed any chance of it ever rising again. Because some things in our lives can't just fall. They need to be finished, cut off at the root. When you defeat a Goliath, be it a temptation, a toxic relationship, or a cycle of self-sabotage, you can't leave it lying there on life support. You've got to end it with resolve. And often, it's with the enemy's own weapon that you gain the final victory. That criticism that used to crush you, use it as fuel. That loss that felt like the end, turn it into your platform for growth. The giant sword, once a tool of fear, was now serving God's purpose. That's redemption in its rawest form. What happened next was almost cinematic. David held up the giant's head like a trophy, not out of vanity, but as a testimony. That gesture declared, this wasn't a fluke, this was victory. And sometimes you'll have to do the same. You'll have to show yourself and the world that you've overcome, not to boast, but to remind yourself that the impossible can be conquered when you live by faith. And that's why 1 Samuel 17 remains one of the most read chapters in the entire Bible. Israel, once hiding, now erupted in a shout. Those who had been cowering behind the rocks ran forward into the fight. It's incredible what one single act of faith can awaken in a crowd. When you rise and face your giant, you don't just win for yourself. You blaze a trail for others to rise as well. It's the domino effect of courage. And that's why stories like this continue to stir hearts all over the world. Because they're not just about one young man. They're about all of us who've ever felt too small for the fight. And even after the victory, David's name would never return to obscurity. That moment wasn't the end of the story. It was the beginning of a new era. An era where God would raise a king out of a young warrior. And what came next was even more surprising. Now tell me, how many times have you let a giant silence you just because it looked too big? How many opportunities have you missed because you thought you had to be more prepared, more experienced, stronger? The truth is, a lot of people spend their whole lives waiting to be enough to start, while the giants keep laughing. But what if, just like David, everything you need is already in your hands right now? Are you waiting for armor? Or are you ready to use the sling you already know? Are you trying to fit into a system that was never made for you in the first place? Maybe today is the day to stop running, to stop hiding behind excuses, to stand up even if your knees are shaking, and act in faith. Because life won't hit pause until you face what's been paralyzing you. And let's be honest, you've already survived worse, haven't you? What if that giant you're facing is exactly what's going to awaken the warrior inside you? The one you didn't even know existed? What if God isn't calling you to watch someone else's story unfold, but to write your own? You can't keep living in the almost. You can't keep being a spectator in your own battle. So what's it going to be? If this video stirred something inside you, don't keep it to yourself. Share it, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell so you won't miss the powerful stories we're about to reveal. Because there's still so much truth in the Bible that no one ever told you, and it just might change the way you see your life.